Hi, it's Coffeeco and welcome to a new video. I know it's been a very long time since I've actually gotten into cosplay for a video. So if you couldn't tell, today I'm doing a video on Pandora Rosier, which is by very popular demand. You guys have been asking for this for like a billion years, so I know that a lot of you right now are cheering. Pandora is a very interesting character to write a video essay about for many different reasons, but a big one is that she is an almost completely made-up character. Thus, a lot of people getting into this fandom for the first time or older fans coming back don't really know anything about her. I'm here to hopefully help with that. Usually in my character dives, I start with the character's personality, but for this specific one, I'm going to dive first into Panda's fandom history so that we can see where the heck she came from, who is she, who is Evan, what is going on. I obviously don't touch on canon that much because who cares, this is the Marauders fandom. But just for reference, the only canonical thing ever said about Pandora is that she is Luna Lovegood's mother and that she died from an experimental spell when Luna was 9. Her last name is never said, and this is the only ever mention of her. Because of this, the Marauders fandom took this one line and ran with it. So everything I'm about to describe in this video is fan lore. However, fan lore is pretty much the same thing as canon at this point in the fandom. So while some things are still up for debate, most of Pandora's lore is pretty much set in stone. Pandora has been a background character in the Marauders fandom for around a decade, but when she was first introduced in the fandom, she was given the last name Lovegood instead of Rosier. Rosier being her last name is a newer 2020s era TikTok fandom thing. The first fic I could find mentioning Pandora is from February of 2016, the second mention being in November of the same year. The search trends for her name start popping up more around November of 2016 as well. Between 2016 and 2020, Pandora was written about, just not that frequently and not very in-depth. The only ship she was involved with around this time was her and Xenophilius Lovegood, who is canonically Luna's father. I don't know if that's how you say that man's name, I'm just gonna leave it at that. But things changed for Pandora's character in the 2020s, as the Marauders fandom had a resurgence on TikTok. Instead of being a Lovegood, she was now considered a Rosier, and was often thought to be twins with Evan Rosier. And Evan Rosier is another made-up character who is based off of one line in all of canon. All that's known about Evan canonically is that he was a Death Eater and that he was killed by Mad Eye Moody. I'm not fully sure what made everyone decide that they should be twins, but it sure is fun. Yeah, there's like no actual connection between Pandora and Evan. They're just random, like, one-liner characters. Along with the now dubbed Rosier twins, a new friend group in the Marauders A new friend group in the Marauders was starting to become popular in early 2021. Of course, I am talking about the ever-divisive Slytherin Skittles. The fanfictions Just Lovers and Crimson Rivers, written by Bizarre Stars in the early 2020s, lended a huge hand in popularizing Skittles. This is a friend group, similar to the Marauders themselves, instead consisting of the various Slytherin characters of the time period. The twins, Regulus Black, Barty Crouch Jr., and Dorcas Meadows make up this group. With this group becoming more popular, as did Pandora, leading to her becoming a more important character in the Marauders fandom and even starting to mix in with the OG Marauders because of a new ship gaining popularity called Panda Lily, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's Lily Evans and Pandora. The first mention of Pandora Rosier that I found was in 2020 to 2022, but it's hard to define when that name specifically popped up because on AO3 her character tag has the name Lovegood, even though most people do portray her as Evan's twin and a Rosier. The first Panda Lily fanfiction I could find was in December of 2020, written by Smitten Soulmates. Pandora has also been included in other smaller ships like Panda Mary and Pandorcas as of late. Another thing that made her character more visible was when a movie A Complete Unknown was filming and stills came out of Elle Fanning and Timothée Chalamet on set. Because Timothy is the most popular Regulus Black headcanon, Marauders fans were quick to joke that these pictures were of Pandora and Regulus. These images genuinely were how she gained some popularity, and that's really funny to me. That's one of my favorite facts about this fandom because it's true. So now that we know where she vaguely came from and where her ideas started to form, moving on to her personality. The best way I can describe Pandora Rosier is intriguing. She's known for being whimsical, peculiar, and kind. She's different from the other characters, different from her friends. She feels like a wild card, like anything could happen with her character. She has a shoulder to cry on, someone who takes pleasure in being able to comfort her friends and try to solve their problems. Because of this, she is a deeply empathetic person, and feels her emotions very openly and deeply. She's very open and friendly, willing to give second chances, and try to see things from other perspectives. Pandora is very creative and down to earth. She loves expressing herself through various mediums like fashion and art. She's passionate about her interests and the things she believes in. Her enthusiasm can be a bit much for some people, but she remains undeterred, not changing who she is for anyone. Pandora is often misunderstood, her mind working in different ways than others. It can be hard to keep up with her, sometimes saying nonsensical things or speaking in a made-up language that only her friends can understand. Despite being a very open and friendly person, Pandora is often cast aside, not bothered with, ignored. She struggles with the feeling of being different from those around her and her friends, wishing that someone could just see her for who she is and take the time and effort to understand. Another thing about Pandora is that she is incredibly intelligent, both intellectually and emotionally. She is one of the most in touch with her feelings and what's going on around her characters in the whole Marauders cast, and her overwhelming creativity and open-mindedness helps her solve problems that no one else ever could, because she has an incredibly different and unique view on the world that ends up being really beautiful. Moving on to her relationships with the other characters. The Rosier twins. Evan and Pandora are best friends and always have been. They're both very different, Pandora being open, friendly, and whimsical, while Evan is closed off, quiet, and morbid. But despite this, they are as close as ever. Pandora ended up being friends with all of Evan's friends, and vice versa, because the two are constantly together, especially while they were growing up. They understand each other in a way that no one else can. Evan is very protective of his sister, and can and has jinxed people for talking shit about her. And Pandora is the same, putting curses on anyone who dares say anything mean about Evan. They will always stand by each other, trusting one another completely. You could say that they're the most functional and happy Marauder siblings. That is. Until, Evan becomes a Death Eater and it tears them apart, because Pandora obviously doesn't want her brother to go down the literal worst path ever, but then he does. And she couldn't stop him from getting the mark or dying despite her visions of him, and she will always blame herself. So maybe they aren't the happiest siblings, and maybe happy siblings don't exist here. I'm just gonna mention right now, I'm sorry if my bangs do not stay where they should during this video. Pandalus. I love my made-up names so much. Anyway, Regulus and Pandora are shockingly great friends. In fact, Regulus is probably the second closest person to Pandora. They are opposite attract soulmate friends. Pandora finds Regulus's grouchiness funny, and Regulus is entertained by Pandora's weirdness. Pandora sometimes speaks in a secret language that only Regulus can understand, and that's a perfectly normal thing between them. When Regulus struggles to open up, it's Pandora that he can always turn to. She will always be there for him as he will for her. In AUs where Regulus survives, it's Pandora that always helps him go Horcrux hunting, and it's Pandora's ability to always give second chances and never give up hope that leads Regulus towards a better path. They're so sweet, and I love them. Panda Killer. This is a name I made up, and it's deeply cursed. But you know what? It makes sense. Pandora and Barty are like a well-oiled machine that sometimes breaks and then explodes, but eventually gets fixed. Barty is antagonistic. He loves to pick a fight and tease, while Pandora is a very genuine person who is gullible when it comes to his random outbursts. At times, they can be extremely close, plotting dumb pranks together and using both their insane intelligence to bend the rules of Hogwarts to their will. Other times, they are fighting over Barty's morals or lack thereof. Despite being a very kind person, Pandora can and will throw down, and sometimes Barty can just be too much for her. This all obviously reaches a boiling point when, he willingly chooses the worst side of history. One interesting thing about them is that they, minus Remus and Mary, were alive the longest, so it's possible that they were able to make up in the 80s or 90s, but who's to say? It kind of depends on your interpretation of them and how close they might have been. And if Pandora was able to get over, the whole evil thing. Dorcas. Dorcas and Pandora match each other's freak, and I love them for that. They have a lesser talked about friendship or ship. Let's go lesbians. Being the only girls in their group, they stick together. Dorcas feels really relaxed around Pandora and always goes to her for advice. Pandora can sometimes get lost in her own head, so it's good for her to be around someone as grounded like Dorcas. They help each other out and are always there for each other. They stood by one another when their friendship kinda imploded because, once again, evil. To say they were each other's rock in their 7th year is an understatement. Yeah, it's kind of funny how the Marauders had like a fun, really fun, great bonding time 7th year, and then the Slytherin Skittles were like on fire. Panda Lily. Lily Evans is a realist, and Pandora Rosier is a whimsical breath of fresh air. Pandora and Lily end up getting to know each other slowly over their years at Hogwarts and become good friends. Or more, if you want. Lily finds herself enraptured by Pandora. The two are so different, and yet it's so easy for them to connect. Lily needs order, she needs her lists and plans and something to hold on to, while Pandora is like a gust of wind, freely going whichever way the day pulls her. Panda offers a space for Lily to just let loose and de-stress, and Lily is able to help keep Pandora organized and more on task. They can relate to having difficult relationships with their siblings and living up to others' expectations. Panda and Lily just melt together in the best way and are extremely important to one another. Pandora and the Marauders. Because she doesn't have a specific connection to any of the boys, I am going to be lumping them all together. They are one. Pandora and the Marauders get along, but they aren't super close. Sirius is intrigued by her, wondering who the blonde girl with charms in her hair is, walking with his brother. Remus respects her intellect, fond of her ability to make new spells and experiment in class. James is friends with her, finding her unique qualities charming. Peter is kind of scared of her, not understanding that she speaks innovative languages and just has her own way of doing things. I do think that Pandora would be the most, like, open of the Slytherin Skittles, minus Regulus, towards the Marauders, so it's easy to imagine her being, like, the closest of friends with all of them out of the whole friend group. Appearance. Pandora's appearance is interesting. Both her and Evan are the only characters that are commonly headcanoned as two different races. You could argue James also applies here, but in my experience, people who refuse to see James as a person of color are just racist or sticklers for the old fandom, so it's not really the same thing. Regardless of if she's viewed as black or white, Pandora has long blonde hair, typically in various hairstyles with different accessories, and she has either brown or blue eyes. Her fan casts are commonly, I'm gonna butcher this name and I'm so sorry, Canal Farragut and Elle Fanning. I would say in most Marauders fan edits you will see her portrayed as Elle Fanning, but in a lot of fan art she seems to be more inspired by Canal Farragut. Panda styles are definitely whimsy goth slash twee, basically anything with like whimsy in front of it. And I think like the 70s term for her fashion at the time would have been more like hippie inspired. She wears a lot of pastel colors, fun clothing, patterns, and prints. She wears long skirts, leg warmers, scarves, cardigans, mini dresses, blouses, boots, and lots of necklaces and accessories. Pandora loves bright and shiny things and expressing her creativity. This comes out in her makeup as well. Fun eyeshadow and lots of glitter. Moving on to her aesthetic and associations, she is associated with pastel colors, tarot cards, whimsy, just as a concept, flowers, butterflies, silk, animal, nature, peaches, the colors green and brown, and glitter. Now moving on to popular Pandora headcanons. By far the most important Pandora headcanon is that she is a seer. Does this technically make sense because Trelawney is a seer? No. However, we will ignore that. Pandora has visions and can see into the future. This is where a lot of her angst comes in because she could tell that all of her friends were gonna die but was powerless to stop it. Especially Regulus. That's fun! This is also where like her being kind of different and odd stems from as well, because like she is literally different from other people. She can see the future and people are put off by that. So next, she's a Ravenclaw. Even though it's called the Slytherin Skittles, she's rarely ever portrayed as a Slytherin. It's possible that this is a direct reference to how Luna hangs around the Gryffindors, even though she's not actually in their house. I really like this headcanon because I feel like there's no way she could ever be sorted into Slytherin. She's too full of joy and whimsy. This is no offense to Slytherins out there. Next, oh, this is a fun one. The spell that offed her was actually a spell to get Evan back. Yeah, she has a lot of really popular bummer headcanons. She's really into crystals. This is another one that I like because she totally seems like she would be. And fun fact, her birthstone is a diamond. Another headcanon that I saw like a little bit less of, but I wanted to mention because I feel like some people are very passionate about this, the headcanon that Pandora is autistic. So unfortunately I don't have any fan works to recommend, like the normal stuff that I do, like fan films, etc., stuff like that. Pandora is a really underrated character and people don't make things centered around her. I mean, to be fair, people don't really make things centered around the girls in general. So it gets kind of worse when you get into the more niche girls. But I do have fan art to share, so here is the gorgeous fan art. It is on screen right now. Feel free to go support all of these artists. They are linked on the screen, so you can go follow them. Very cool, very nice, love it. And that's all she wrote. By she, I mean me, because we're done. I know this video was probably a little bit shorter than my other character dives, but it's because when I start getting into the like fully made up characters, there's a lot less fandom history, and I couldn't really write a section on her life because she doesn't like have a lore and she's not written about enough for me to know what to But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for always being here and continuing to be here even though I take like massive breaks. I can say for certain that my next video is going to be on Peter Pettigrew and it is going to come out on Halloween. So I will see you guys on Halloween. Bye.